All right,
Yeah.
let's
Well, there will
actually
be time for that.
let's begin.
All right. Sorry. Yeah. Please.
Hey, what's going on, guys? This is Slime Boss here, and welcome back to the Fairy Fountain podcast. Today, I am joined by my usual co-host, Hylian Hero, and this
Hey
week,
guys.
this month actually, we are joined by the one, the only Steve Bowling of Good Vibes Gaming. Hello, Steve.
Hey, how's it going? Thanks for having me, guys.
Going
Yeah, and
great.
we just were talking a little bit before the show, and it's just surreal to have you here, and well, we hope you enjoy yourself, really.
Oh, I'm sure we're in for a good time today, fellas.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right, so this last month, we literally had nothing to talk about, and we were kind of just upset and on edge. But literally, 2 days later, we got the announcement of a major Nintendo Direct, and it's been a couple weeks now, so I feel like we can talk about it a little bit more. And I know Steve stated his opinions a little bit on today's news tonight, but we'll sort of go through everything and see how you're feeling about it a few weeks later, if
Sure.
you have any more opinions. But all in all, now that Direct, well, what it seems like, we don't know, Nintendo's unpredictable. Now that a general Direct is finally here, do you guys think that Directs are back in their usual progression? So like one around the summertime, one in the fall, things like that.
I think so. Just the way they stated it in the beginning of the direct, they were like, we had to do these different things last year, and we couldn't do a normal direct, but now we're. They didn't really say it, but they feel like they're back now. Like assuming we don't dive or get worse with the pandemic, I think it'll be fine. We'll be back to normal.
Yeah, I think the missing directs was always a product of COVID-19 and
Right.
just the development pipeline being what it is. And I feel like Nintendo, anytime they have whatever they deem to be an appropriate amount of content to warrant a general direct to show, that they'll absolutely do it. And further underlining your point, I think that we will see a summer direct. I think we will. I'm
Sure hope so.
iffy on a winter direct. I think we might get just two this year. I think we'll get our traditional E3 time frame direct, which will then kind of spell out what's going on in the back half of 2020, 2021.
Right.
2020 is over.
Yeah.
But
So weird.
because Nintendo did do exactly what they said they were going to do. They focused on the first half of this year. Yeah, we got a couple things that spilled over, but there's still
Mhm.
big question marks for the second half of this year. Are we even going to get a Zelda 35th celebration
Yeah.
of some kind?
We're
Are
gonna
we
talk
going to
about that
get
too.
the rumored, Breath of the Wild 2 this year? Like, are we, the rumor being, is it going to release this year? Is there going to be a Switch Pro hardware announcement at some point? I don't think on that last one, I think that's a 2022 thing, but
Yeah.
it would make sense to announce it towards the tail endish of 2021. So yeah, I don't think this is by any stretch the last big Nintendo Direct, and certainly not the last one of this year even.
I guess since we're kind of on the topic of just sort of in general about the year, are we even gonna see a Zelda 35th celebration? Like, I just thought it was so weird that they didn't even make note of it in the direct, especially because it was literally 4 days later. Like, I don't really know why.
Think they want to let Skyward Sword have time to breathe. Like there was rumors that came out soon after the direct from I believe it was Andy Robinson and somebody from Eurogamer, I believe, that said that Wind Waker and Twilight Princess are still coming. I think they will a few months after Skyward Sword, but I don't think they want to talk about them until after it launches.
All right.
Yeah, I've heard similar that we should expect Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, which I mean would make sense. Those are two of the last big Wii U games that haven't been ported. I mean, if Nintendo has gone through this effort to port just about everything else, why not
Yeah.
two of the, two games from the biggest franchise in their stable right now? So I imagine that will come out. I agree that Skyward Sword is kind of the big leading announcement. I'm 50-50 on if they're going to brand it as a Zelda 35th celebration, though, because
Yeah.
I feel like that is something you kind of would come out of the gate with. And Skyward Sword HD, I mean, I get people are mixed on that, but it would be a really big thing to include as part of that for initial announcement. Like, hey, we're doing Zelda 35th in a big way. Here's a remake of Skyward Sword, and here is then these ports of all these other beloved games. I as a fan, I of course want that. I think every Zelda fan wants
Yeah.
Link to get the same treatment Mario got, or at least, as a
Similar.
baseline. But um I think we'll see it. I feel like it's weird that Nintendo hasn't acknowledged it yet, though.
Yeah.
I think they're waiting until after Mario dies at the end of the month.
Yeah, that too. I mean, let Mario have the end of his 35th anniversary before kicking off the Zelda anniversary or something. But it is kind of weird that they let the anniversary, the actual day, come and go without even a tweet.
Yeah.
It just feels odd.
Part-time
And
UFO is
especially-
very important here.
Yeah. Especially because Pokemon, I guess I always forget, like, even though Pokemon is a Nintendo franchise, Pokemon is very much its own thing. Like, you could technically say it's almost like a Sega because obviously they're
that far.
influenced by Nintendo, but they're also, their own massive company. And they went all out with their, on Pokemon Day, like, Post Malone, that was great, all these different things. And for Nintendo to not even mention Zelda, it's just so odd to me. But
Yeah, it is really weird, and I'll be honest, a tad off-putting. Like, I wish Nintendo would pay more respect to Zelda. Zelda is second only to Mario in terms of, if you're talking about a corporation, the thing that matters is money, and Link brings in almost as much money, or
Yeah.
in some cases more than Mario. So it is really weird to me that there's not an angle from which I can view it and make sense of it.
yeah.
But like you said, Pokemon, I mean, it has a marketing budget that is just unheard of, even by
yeah.
Nintendo standards. The TPCI just they throw their weight around when it comes to promoting Pokemon, and honestly, I wish Nintendo would do that a little bit more sometimes. I think that Nintendo obviously has played their marketing hand with the Switch extremely well, but I mean, there's room to appease the fans, and I wish they'd do more of that. But who knows? Like, maybe April comes around and we get something more, some recognition for Zelda. But I've learned with Nintendo, you just don't hold your breath.
At least they're not
Going
doing.
into the go ahead.
At least they're not doing what the marketing strategy was for Wii U. I don't even know what that marketing strategy was.
What even is a Zelda?
Or what? There is a similar Wii U type ad that they did for 3D World where all these people were turning into cats, and when I saw the thumbnail, I was like, I thought it was the new host of Blue's Clues. I'm like, oh, they got a cameo. Like, I was like, it's so weird. I don't know if you saw it, but like they were all turning into cats and stuff, and like,
yeah,
it was definitely Wii U. I mean, I guess it makes sense because it was 3D World, but whatever. Anyway, what were you gonna say, Hylian?
Well, going into the year, I was expecting no Nintendo Directs for a while and a Zelda Direct around March or April. Now I'm just thinking we're not getting a Zelda Direct. I don't think Breath of the Wild 2 is going to come out until early next year. I think they'll just, whatever Zelda announcements we get for the year will just be in normal Directs.
Yeah. I'm still, like, I originally kind of locked in Zelda coming in at the end of the year, but now that I feel like every time they do a Zelda announcement, AG or Mr. Alnuma comes on screen and says, "We have nothing to share today. We have nothing to share today." Like they did that for Age of Calamity, they did that for this Direct. So whenever it's coming, who knows? But it's either coming this year at the very end or next year at the very beginning, one of the two.
Somewhere around there.
Yeah, I don't even care like when it comes out at this point. I just want to know like what's going on in it. Like I just want to see like some gameplay.
I think we see a Breath of the Wild 2, like another trailer, in summer. I think
I agree.
That's fair. Yeah.
That puts it at a couple years since they showed the last trailer.
Yeah.
And E3 or the E3 time frame, because there will still be a digital E3. E3 would be the time to show like another gameplay trailer or something like that, and it would kind of fit with Nintendo's strategy. Well, I guess I shouldn't say that, because typically at E3, Nintendo likes to showcase whatever their biggest game coming out that year is. So I imagine we'll find out whatever their holiday game is, because I firmly don't believe it'll be Breath of the Wild 2. But I do think we get a trailer. And that way you have a lot of people with eyes on this direct. Everybody knows the E3 direct is like the hypest one of the year usually.
Yeah.
And then we'll get that trailer, and I don't think we'll get a release date. I think we'll get like early 2022.
Yeah.
And then, later on we'll get the announcement of a new piece of hardware, the Super Switch, Switch Pro, whatever it is. And Breath of the Wild 2, in my mind, will be inextricably linked to that. Like, they'll just want to release that with the new hardware at the same time.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think their marketing strategy for Breath of the Wild 2 will be similar to the original. We'll get a big, maybe not a big blowout, but a lot of information around E3 time, whether they do a digital event around there or not. And we'll get a trailer maybe at the Game Awards. Maybe that'll be the release date trailer, or maybe they just announce it a couple months in advance like they did with the original.
And it fits with Pokemon too, because Pokemon's doing a big, quote unquote ambitious Pokemon game that sort of fits the Switch Pro launch too.
Yeah.
And speaking of Switch Pro, how are you guys feeling about it now since the direct? Is it still coming? Is it going to be announced in the holiday? Or
I think they'll wait till early next year. I don't think they want to potentially cannibalize their holiday sales announcing the next best thing.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm expecting a March launch for the Switch Pro, or whatever it's called. And I think that it will get an announcement either late December, early January, sometime once the Christmas, I'm sure they know, like, when Christmas sales drop off, right? Nintendo has this data. So once they've decided, like, hey, everybody that was going to buy a Switch for Christmas has bought it, here's when we announce new hardware, so people don't feel burned by, whatever. They have some type of calculation that tells them when it's safe to announce that kind of stuff. But I would expect late December, early January, you announce it. It's coming out in 2-3 months. And then here's a slate of games that work fine on your current Nintendo Switch, but are enhanced for this new one. And they have specific enhancements to them that let them run better or whatever. And hey, it also runs all your old games, and developers will gradually patch those to perform better on this new model. But I think that's kind of the tack that they'll take. I think we see that early 2022 with the thing launching in early spring of that year.
I think we're all in agreement here that they do not pull a new Nintendo 3DS. They do not do that.
I hope they don't name it that.
Well, no, I'm not talking about the naming convention. I'm talking about like Xenoblade Chronicles 3D, like that type of stuff.
Oh yeah, no. Exclusive games are not the way to go when you have an 80 million console install base already. You do not want to alienate the folks that don't see the value proposition of your new hardware when it's this hot.
Yeah.
If they ever do, like, obviously we're talking about a upgrade, not a sequel. Whenever they do a sequel, do you guys think we'll have like PS5 level like updates to games, like New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe Integrate?
I don't think they will. I think they'll just leave their older games like that. They'll be backwards compatible, but
hopefully we'll have actual backwards compatibility, because the switch to Wii U thing is a little iffy, because pretty much every console before that.
Though.
Yeah.
I think we're going to be sticking with the cartridges.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I think I think Nintendo has, for better or for worse, painted themselves into a console design corner. It would be an extremely hard sell to say, hey, we know you all love the Switch. We know you like having your console portable and taking it with you, but now we're introducing something that is either just portable or just a console. I think people would be understandably upset by that. I think Nintendo has kind of created this new market segment for themselves. And so I think even if it is an official successor to the Switch, it would still need to retain that core concept of being a hybrid console. I think that they've just kind of made that a thing. I think that if there is some kind of generational difference in terms of architecture to where games could foreseeably be upgraded, I don't think Nintendo really has it in them to do that. They historically haven't cared enough I could see other developers doing it though. I don't see Nintendo closing that avenue to say Square Enix, right? Saying, oh hey, if you want to take Bravely Default 2 and add ray tracing, go for it. I think
Yeah.
that Nintendo would just be like, do it however you want it, as long as it runs fine. Yeah, I'll be curious to see where that ends up. I think where my curiosity lies the most is in a next generation, like a Switch successor. What do you do to make it, I mean, other than better graphics, right? Because that's the obvious thing, but what do you do to make that appeal to people that are already completely sold on the Switch concept? What is the new thing that kind of scratches an itch that the Switch doesn't? And I have a hard time even imagining it at this point. I mean, I think we all I think a big part of the reason the Switch is as successful as it is because everybody dreamed of having like console quality graphics in a portable and just being able to slap the damn thing on your TV and not really notice a difference. So, I mean, that was kind of a dream scenario for a lot of people before the Switch existed. And I just don't know what you do to make obvious like a different type of value for that. It would be interesting to see where Nintendo goes from here.
And that's another thing too. Like even with 3D World coming out, putting Bowser's Fury aside, like just playing 3D World on the go was insane. Like even Mario Maker 2, like, this, I mean, obviously they had the 3DS game, but it wasn't as good as the Wii U one. And so basically combining the two things together, portability and console quality graphics, it's almost like a dream come true made in heaven. Like it's literally perfect. And then also another thing too, I know that the recent Nintendo president said, "Oh, we're always looking for like new avenues and like trying to basically a selling point for a console." And I think I don't think that they really need to do that. I think people will still buy it if it's the same thing, just better graphics or something. Like I don't know. I think you guys know what I'm talking about when what he said. He's like, we need to have like a special gimmick with their console or whatever.
Well, I love Nintendo, but they're kind of speaking out of both sides of their mouth on this one. Let's not forget that the Game Boy came out with like a million iterations.
Yeah.
Game Boy Pocket, Game Boy Pocket Lite, Game Boy Color. They were marginal, like kind of incremental improvements over the existing formula. And while none of them were deemed a true next generation until the GBA, I mean, they kept that going for a ridiculous amount of time. And I could definitely see them doing that with the Switch. Like, okay, we don't know yet how to make something different from the Switch. So here's the Switch Pro 2.
I mean, what they could do,
more powerful.
What they could do is they could have like the not the PS, the Switch, and then the Switch Lite, and then you also have the Switch Pro, which I kind of want it to be docked only. So like, just this is for like the hardcore fans. You buy the Switch Pro, and then everyone else can buy like the regular Switch. But then like later on down the line, either like alongside the Switch Pro or a few years down the line after the Switch Pro, that they also re-release the Switch. So how we had that 1.1 version, they could make a completely new like slim model or something like the PS Vita did, sort of like that sort of thing too. They could just make it, they could update it, make it slimmer, fix the Joy-Con, things like that, just minor improvements.
Yeah, I think what we'll end up seeing is that the current model Switch, the one that most of us have, the dockable model, will take $100 price cut. I think the Switch Lite will take a $50 price cut, and we'll get the Switch Pro in at the current Switch, like the $300 price point. I think that's kind of the move that you would make to get as many people as possible to adopt this new model Switch. That being said, I do think there's I think it's a cool idea to have like a docked only Switch. I couldn't see that being like your top of the line model though, because again, it takes away the switching functionality, right? In the same way the Lite did. So I could see that being as like a secondary SKU that they do just for folks, because there are a lot of folks that, just want to play it at home on their TV all the time. I get that. But there is also so much room to improve on the current Switch's design. I mean, you like you said, you could slim it down. You could improve the reliability of the Joy-Con. I would personally prefer, like Nintendo said at one point, the original concept of the Joy-Con was to have them attach magnetically instead of with plastic rails. That would be really cool. An OLED screen would be really nice, like the Vita had back in the day. heck, make it out of more premium materials instead of swap out the plastic for aluminum like Apple does with most of their devices.
A
Swap
huge
out the plastic screen for glass,
a-
something that caters more to an adult with more disposable income who cares for their gadgets.
yeah.
I would love to see something like that.
It's so weird. Like, I feel like there's something about the Wii U that feels like finished. Like the Switch, like if like at some points it feels fine, but like sometimes it just feels flimsy. Like it's gonna break in my hands. I don't just sometimes I have that feeling. So I definitely see what you're saying.
Interesting. Yeah, I said this back when I reviewed the Switch Lite, but I would love something that fuses like the design sensibilities of the Lite with the capabilities of the normal model. Something,
Yeah.
because I think the Switch Lite feels like this incredibly sturdy, incredibly well thought out device, whereas the Switch feels like they were just trying to pack as much power as they could into like the smallest device possible. And I think that I would be really happy if we got something that kind of blended those two. But I mean, I'm not unhappy with the current iteration of the Switch. I would just, if you're making a next generation, maybe play with the design a little bit, see what you come up with.
All right. So, do you have anything else to say, Hylian, about this?
Not really. I think if the most they could really do with the successor is, I think, mess with the controllers. Because I know
Yeah.
Miyamoto was saying, I think a couple years ago, that they wanted to do something like that, or at least they were messing around with the concept.
Yeah.
Not that I want it, but we'll see what they do.
Figure out why drifting is happening, because it's already happening in PS5 controllers. Just stop making controllers like that. Don't know what changed
The
from the
analog's
last
fixed.
last generation. Like, anyway, let's just hop into the headlines here, at least the more important ones. So Fall Guys, again, a little late to the punch, but I've been waiting for this patiently for it to come out on the Switch. I have it on PC, but my PC doesn't run that well, especially if I want to like stream it or something. It just doesn't work. So, and Switch is like a perfect platform for it.
Absolutely.
Agreed.
Outer Wilds, when I did a reaction to the Direct, I thought this was already on Switch, but I guess it wasn't.
I made the same mistake with the Outer Worlds.
Yeah,
like,
it's Outer Worlds.
Wait.
That's completely different. The Famicom Detective Club, I think that's really cool. We just need Mother 3, of course. The translation
Mother 3 is I was talking to Emily Rogers about Mother 3 because Earthbound is not my jam. I don't pretend to know a lot about the series. And she had, Emily Rogers is extremely well connected. She
Absolutely
can give you pretty much info on anything you want to know. And she had explained to me that her belief at the time that we had the discussion was that we're just never going to see it. And she had been one of the people saying like, oh, it's coming and soon during the Wii U era. And, she understandably wanted to figure out why she was so off the mark with that. And she told me that Nintendo was ready to localize it and ready to release it, and realized that a lot of the humor in that game has aged like milk.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I mean, there's supposedly like homophobic and transphobic jokes in the game.
Ouch.
And so it's like, yeah, you can't really release that now. Like
you could patch it.
Probably could have 8 years ago, and been okay with that. But these days it would just come across as incredibly tone deaf. And so they're kind of locked in a situation where, again, and this is all third-hand information at this point, but I mean, if you release a game with the homophobic and transphobic jokes intact, obviously that's not a good look for any company. But if you go back and you edit them, then you'll have an equally large number of people that are upset that you're censoring the game now. So it's kind of like Nintendo's just like, yeah, we're not going to win here. So why would we do it at all?
That's so weird. I
not
totally
worth the
forgot
risk,
about the gypsy, or I think that's what they're called, right? Something like that.
I think so.
Yeah, I never really thought about that. That's just, I don't know. Well, Earthbound itself is not even on Switch Online, so
yeah,
I don't know.
I feel like
the state of the
much
series
easier for them to do.
Yeah.
I don't understand why Earthbound itself isn't, but I mean, what? Maybe in 16 more months we'll get it eventually.
The one reason to
That's
own
optimistic.
a Wii U, for Virtual Console, and also Earthbound Beginning, because you can't play Earthbound Beginnings anywhere either. It will at least officially translated.
I'm surprised that was not on NES Online.
Yeah, that should be like one of
Yeah.
the first things. Well,
Probably just saving it for a rainy day or something at
yeah.
this point.
Yeah.
Samurai Warriors 5. Are you into the Warriors game, Steve?
As much as I love Koei Tecmo and a lot of the work they do, last time I tried to pick up a Samurai Warriors or a Dynasty Warriors game, because they haven't done a Samurai Warriors in quite some time, I don't know, the games don't grab me the same way. I am much more of a fan of when they collaborate with other
Yeah.
properties like Age of Calamity, Persona 5 Strikers, like those are great. I love those. I just I don't really love the plain vanilla Warriors games that much anymore.
Yeah.
Same.
I thought that, I never even heard of the Warriors games until Hyrule Warriors, and so like my friend told me, "Oh, have you heard of Dynasty Warriors?" And I'm like, "No." And then I sort of looked into it, post like definitive edition. And the concept is really cool, but I feel like it works better as a crossover, like, having all these different characters. Like Age of Calamity was cool, but like it doesn't have that same flavor as the original Hyrule Warriors. Like they found something here. And I think that's what Koei Tecmo is like, that should be pursuing. I mean, other than like their other properties.
Oh, I agree. I think with Hyrule Warriors, it feels like a Warriors game with a Zelda skin over it,
Mhm.
and that's cool. Like, because mechanically those games can be fun, but you have to care about the characters and the world that you're in.
Mhm.
Which I mean, I don't want to say people don't care about feudal Japan and ancient Japan and
Yeah.
China and stuff like that, but it's definitely nowhere near as interesting as Hyrule, right?
Yeah.
Or the world of Fire Emblem. So I get it. Like it works best when you're putting people into a fantasy world that they're invested in and have a history with, and you get these cool fan servicey moments throughout them. But I do agree that there's a major difference in design philosophy between Definitive Edition and Age of Calamity, and it feels like whereas Definitive Edition is a Warriors game at its core, Age of Calamity feels much more like a Zelda game at its core.
Yeah.
And I think that
Absolutely.
that is a huge difference. And I absolutely think that Koei Tecmo has done a good job evolving the Warriors formula to fit within the confines of these franchises that they're now working with. And
Yeah.
I hope they continue to do that, because Age of Calamity was the best Warriors game I've ever played, because it did so well at integrating the source material.
What franchise would work perfectly as a Warriors game? Final
Xenoblade?
Fantasy.
Oh, that'd
But
be
like
fun.
you get everything. You get Mana, you get Saga, you get Kingdom Hearts, you get everything. That would be massive.
That would be really cool.
Speaking of Mana, Legend of Mana is coming to the Switch. I thought it was already on Switch. I don't really know too much about that.
I think you're thinking of Trials of Mana, which is on Switch now.
What was the collection that came?
That one's there too. It's like the first
Secret of
three Mana games, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how many Mana games there are, so
I'm not a huge Mana guy either. Ash would be like
Yeah.
the person I would turn to ask that question.
I would feel like
Yeah.
he's more of like the RPG guy in general.
Oh no.
No?
I love Ash to death, but he's definitely not the. I would say Derek is our RPG
Derek,
guy
okay.
by a long shot. Derek is in fact, and I've talked about this before, but there was never any expectation that I would have been the one reviewing Final Fantasy VII Remake back in the GX days, even though
yeah.
I love Final Fantasy VII and I absolutely adore it and would have loved the opportunity. But Derek is just, I think that he, like, I prefer to sit down with more Zelda type games, like action adventure, with
Okay.
RPG elements, whereas Derek definitely prefers like the turn-based, narrative heavy, long ass RPGs that and I get it. I just feel like as an adult, I barely have the time to, if I find out a game's like 100 hours, I'm like, well, that's
you
going
play
in
Breath
the
of the
backlog.
Wild?
I understand that one.
I really want to get into so many different RPGs. Like the biggest RPG I've ever gotten into as a kid was like Mario and Luigi Bowser's Inside Story, which isn't saying much. So I really wanted to get into like Final Fantasy VII, especially because like remake came out and stuff. And so like whenever I have whenever PS5s come back in stock, hopefully I can get that and integrate. to finally try out Final Fantasy in general. But I've always been interested, and I don't know if you know Nico B, but I watch some of his series. Like
I've heard the name. I haven't.
Yeah.
Yeah. Watching all the YouTube content
Yeah.
I want to watch is another thing that goes in the backlog, unfortunately.
So I'm interested, but like I don't know, like story, obviously 100-hour campaign, that's another thing, but like the battle system is something that's really hard to jump into, especially because like my first RPGs were Pokemon and Mario and Luigi, so like it's kind of hard to figure out a whole new system, and be able to play a 100-hour game when there's no time left in the world. So
yeah, I think folks my age, right? I'm in my late 30s. Benefit from the fact that when we were teenagers, when we were coming up, RPGs, JRPGs specifically, were like the genre du jour. They were what everyone that was playing back then. And I mean, luck would so have it that when you're a teenager, obviously you have just loads more free time than you do at just about any other point in your life. Well, I should say your competency to free time ratio is the best it ever gets in your life, right? Like you're able to be autonomous and figure your own things out, but you also don't have to work. So it's perfect for getting into a genre like the RPG where 100 hours as a 15-year-old doesn't seem like a huge commitment. Whereas 100 hours as a 38-year-old feels like, oh my God, what am I doing with my life?
It's so weird. Like I feel like I have just as much free time as I did back then, even though I probably don't. And then, I sit there during my free time and I feel like I should be productive, and just thinking about being productive and then procrastinating, like I lose that free time. Like where did it all go? So
right, there's the stigma and the guilt of adulthood, being like, oh well, if I'm idle, I should be doing something. And it ends up in this weird kind of paralysis where you just end up like scrolling YouTube instead of doing
that's literally
things that you want to do. You end up being just as unproductive, but not in the way you wanted to be unproductive, if that
and
makes
then you
sense.
feel bad.
Yeah. And then there's the guilt and the cycle continues.
All right, next up is Travis. What is it called? What's the series called?
No More Heroes 3.
No More Heroes. Okay.
Oh man, let's go.
I have never played a single No More Heroes game. I'm definitely interested. I didn't know when I watched TNT. You guys said that the little chores that you do was in the first game. I was just dying of laughter. I'm like, you really have to do chores to get into the dungeon? Like, oh my God.
Yes, yeah.
So it was so ridiculous, but that's kind of like No More Heroes thing.
It is. I would describe it almost as like the Deadpool of video games.
Oh, I totally see that. Yeah,
that is extremely self-aware, fourth wall breaking. The writing is both hilarious and kind of mind-bending in a way. Like it takes you on a trip you don't think you're going to take. I think that if No More Heroes was developed as an anime instead of a game, it would be one of my favorite anime of all time. Suda51 is an incredibly brilliant writer, and who knows how to tread that line between making an engaging narrative but not taking itself too seriously.
Right.
Like he understands and communicates to the player incredibly well that like, yeah, okay, I'm telling you this story about this guy who's climbing the ranks to become the top assassin, but I also know that the premise of the story is incredibly stupid.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to try to make you believe that you should be invested in Travis as a character. I know where to cut the BS and just start making jokes. And so I really appreciate that about No More Heroes in general, but also it is like a top tier action game. It is just so incredibly satisfying. Like the sword play in that game is incredibly satisfying, and they layer on just enough RPG elements to make it feel like it's not mindless. And I think that it's a perfect blend of different type of game mechanics to create something that is entirely unique. Like I've never played another game like No More Heroes. I literally can't think of a person I wouldn't recommend it to because of that. Because most people I know that play games are always looking for something different, something new, something exciting, and I think that No More Heroes does a great job of delivering on that. We're going to have a lot more on No More Heroes 3 on the channel soonish.
Okay.
I can't talk more about what we're doing, but we have some plans. We're working with Grasshopper to make those things happen.
Nice.
So there will be some cool exclusive content on GVG this year.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah, and it's great that almost every game now is on the Switch. Well, yeah, every game because you have 1, 2, and the spin-off
Yeah.
game. So
Mm.
you got a lot of game to play through. So
Yeah, they're honestly really quick too. I mean, they're
Okay.
not long
good.
games.
Oh, okay.
So you don't have to invest. I would say across all 3 games, maybe 40 hours across all
It's
3
not bad at
games
all.
to finish them all. Yeah.
All right. Next up is there's no name on this list. It's the card game where you're demons in
You've
heaven.
lost me. I
Uh,
don't remember that one.
You lost me at card game. I don't I don't know a lot
it's
about
that
card game.
card game platformer thing.
Clubhouse games came out last
Neon
year.
white, neon white, neon white, neon white.
Oh,
Okay,
Oh,
yeah.
that one.
So this is actually really intriguing. I'm interested. Like it looks like I always like those weird like crazy art style. Like when I first saw the world, I instantly thought of Human Fall Flat. I don't know why, but yeah, I did. But this is definitely very intriguing of like gameplay style. I don't know if I'll check it out, but it's definitely interesting.
I'm pulling
Right.
it up to remind myself what it looks like, but I remember being a little bit taken with the trailer. I could see myself trying this.
I didn't even know like it had cards in it. Like I was like, oh, was it like? But
That's right. Yeah, you had to use cards to take any action. It could be interesting. I would definitely try it. I just don't know that it would be something I personally enjoy, but the premise is intriguing enough that I'll give it a shot for sure.
it's one of those like one-off concepts, see if it sticks type of deal.
Yeah.
Next up is DC Superhero Girls, which is interesting. I think that they spent that trailer was really long, and I was just so confused the whole time. I was just like, what is going on? I didn't know that they would even put some. Is it the developer is why they put the game in the direct?
Who's they're publishing it?
Oh, Nintendo is. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah. To be fair, so DC Superhero Girls, I have a 7-year-old girl.
Oh, right.
And so that show is immensely popular in my house. And as I understand it, because when you're a parent, you find out all the stuff other kids are into, even if you don't care, because your kid will tell you. But from anecdotally, I understand that show to be very popular with younger girls right now, which makes sense. It's about superhero girls. It's not like your traditional superhero show. It's more of like a comedy variety show. Like, I don't know if y'all are familiar with like Teen Titans Go.
I was just gonna ask, is it better than Teen Titans Go? Like, please tell me it's better than Teen Titans Go.
No, it is not.
Oh,
like as an adult male, there's nothing for you here. I promise.
I feel like a lot of people looked at Teen Titans Go and like like when it first came out, they're like, oh yes, more Teen Titans, and then it ended up being the dumpster fire that it is. So
yeah. No, it doesn't lean as heavily into humor as Teen Titans Go, or at least at that kind of high energy humor that Teen Titans Go goes for. It's more of like a blend of a sitcom / reality show, if I had to describe it.
Okay.
The thing I will say though is, having seen the show multiple times, it's always on one TV in my house somewhere. The Switch version does, at least visually, perfectly capture the essence of that show, which I think is really cool, like just from an art and technical perspective, but I have zero interest in trying it.
Yeah.
I just I don't want to play it, but I know that this will be on my daughter's holiday gift list for sure.
Yeah.
Like, this is something that she will absolutely be begging me to get for her. And so I showed her the trailer because I was like, it was the one thing from the direct where I was like, oh, my daughter needs to see this. She's gonna love this. And sure enough, she was like, oh, are we gonna go buy that now? Are you reviewing that? Like,
are you reviewing that?
Oh yeah. I mean, she understands what I do for a living. She understands that, like, she was bragging to kids at school. She's like, my dad has a PlayStation 5 and it's not even out yet. And I was like, you can't do that. That makes you come off as a jerk. But two, like now whenever any game she's excited for gets announced, she's like, hey, do we have that already? Like, I know it's not out yet, but do you have it?
Yeah. That would have been totally me
that
as
is
a kid.
so cute.
It is cute, and I have played like pre-release games with her. A funny anecdote is that, because we were just talking about No More Heroes, on my review that I did for Game Explain, there are several clips of me playing multiplayer in Travis Strikes Again. and that is my daughter playing with me. Like
Yeah.
she was my player too for those clips, which was really fun. She's like, this game's all right. But,
I was gonna say like, wait, I totally forgot what I was gonna say. Never mind. Go ahead.
It'll come back like
Yeah.
towards the end
Oh,
of the
yeah.
show.
Oh yeah.
Wow, it's really gonna bug me now. It was, all right. You think we can move on from DC superhero girls?
Game of the year.
Yeah.
Yeah, obvious contender.
Um. Plants vs Zombies. I'm now shook because I couldn't forget. I forgot what I was gonna say. Plants vs Zombies. Oh, I figured it out. Because you just said that about how your daughter wants you to review DC superhero girls. I bet you someone's gonna donate on Patreon and try to make you review that after you review Chicken.
Yeah, probably. I have another review queued up after Chicken for October though, which is interesting. Like the reviewer requested I not publish the review until Halloween, so that'll be fun.
Okay. Wait, what is the tier for review?
It's just called request a review.
Oh, okay. So it's, as soon as you say, "Oh, like something ridiculous," then someone's gonna make you review it. Like it's something like
yeah.
obviously with Chicken, it's a precedent. So
yeah, somebody threatened me with reviewing the Arby's Mountain of Meat or
Oh,
something.
God.
Really
Threatened you?
Say what?
I said threatened you.
Yeah, they were like, "Hey, I'm gonna make you." Like I had tweeted it out how gross it looked, and they're like,
Yeah.
"I'm gonna pay for you to review that." I was like, "Please don't." I mean, I will if you pay me, but I don't want to.
Bad vibes.
Yeah, bad vibes indeed.
Plants vs Zombies: Battle for Neighborville. This series is still going on. I don't know how. Like, at least it's doing a lot better than Angry Birds is, because Angry Birds deleted like every single one of their games from the App Store.
Oh wow.
Or
Didn't know
well,
about
most of them, like the original Angry Birds and like those weird spin-offs that they did. But I guess Plants vs Zombies is in the battle royale business. I kind of forgot about the series, so I guess here it is.
Yeah. This has been around. So oddly enough, this I want to say Battle for Neighborville was originally an Xbox One, like an early Xbox One title.
Oh,
And
really?
I only remember that because it was one of the very first games I ever reviewed. So
Oh,
I was just starting off like on my own as a freelancer, like reaching out to people. And Ubisoft a few months prior had been kind enough to let me review South Park. They sent me a PC copy, even though like I had no following. And next up on my list was I just started emailing like every PR person I could find to every publisher to introduce myself. And EA reached out and they're like, "Hey, do you want to review Plants vs Zombies?" And at this time I was just literally going for anything that people would let me review. So I was like, "Sure, let's do it." And I honestly enjoyed the game quite a bit. Like it was actually a fun like break from the traditional modern shooter. It didn't hold my interest for long. Like I played it for the review period. I enjoyed what I played, and I was like, all right, bye.
Yeah.
And I put it away. It is really an odd choice to see on the Switch. I mean,
it fits, but
it's just, yeah, it's one of those franchises, like you mentioned, that I just don't know that people care about anymore. Like I don't know anybody that is hyped for this game at all.
I
mean,
know-
and as someone who played and enjoyed it, I'm still not hyped to see it come up on the Switch. I'm just like, all right, well, I mean, it's a game.
yeah.
So-
I forgot what his name is. He has like an 8-bit sprite as his face. It's he does
You just
collaborations
described
with
half of gaming
Abdallah.
Twitter.
I don't.
With who?
Why am I forgetting his name? Zach Scott? Is that his name?
Oh yeah, I know who you're talking about.
I think he plays like all the Plants
Ooh.
vs Zombies games. Like he's always playing Garden Warfare 2. Like he's still playing it.
Oh wow.
Dedication.
Yeah. Next up is Miitopia, which this is probably the most surprising thing out of the direct, because this is the first 3DS or one of the first 3DS ports, because I think we had technically Hyrule Warriors, but do we really count that because it's technically a Wii U port?
Well, we had
Yeah.
Sushi Striker. which
Oh,
that's
right,
true.
I forgot about that. I think that's precedent for what type of game it is, but I heard it was good, and then it sort of just left, just disappeared. But
I played like 5 hours. It was all right. Nothing amazing. The gameplay was fun.
So
exactly.
I've never played Metopia. Obviously, the Switch sort of shadowed over that release. But I'm excited to try it out, and also it finally gives leeway to my Woohoo Island Adventure dream dream game, where we can at least they're actually opening back up to the Miis, because it was so weird to see them just disappear for like 2 years for just like no reason. So I'm excited.
Yeah. I would say that Mii's were one of my favorite things of the Wii era that I still don't understand why Nintendo just canned them, especially because you can still create a Mii on the
Yeah.
Switch and use it as a as an icon and nothing else. But it felt weird that they went through the effort of including a Mii creator on the Switch for you to do nothing with it beyond pose it for an icon picture and
Yeah.
that's it.
Yeah.
So I'm really happy that they're actually doing something with it. Miitopia is probably not the way I wanted to see it come back.
Yeah.
Miitopia is just such a vanilla game. Like it
I'm
is
hoping
a
that they
game.
expand it too.
Yeah.
I would have
just
hoped for
want-
Tamagotchi life.
Yeah, what I see is everyone that is excited by the announcement of Miitopia is excited because of what it could potentially mean down the
Yeah,
line. and
yeah.
not
I
because of
literally
the
said
game.
that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I don't know. I don't have a lot to say. I played Miitopia. My daughter again. It's a game she loves. Which I mean, I guess for kids, like younger kids, it could be really cool. But it's also $50. Like I don't
Yeah.
want to pay $50 for this.
I think it's also being developed by Grezzo, which kind of sucks because I was hoping that they were working on another Zelda game, particularly either the Oracle games or porting Majora's Mask and Ocarina of Time. But oh well. But
This is a common like tinfoil hat time conspiracy theory that I hear is that maybe Miitopia was just their attempt at like getting used to the idea of remaking 3DS games for the Switch.
Okay.
Take a simple ass game, and port it over, but also give it a fresh coat of paint, 1080p, nicer presentation. And then once you have that figured out, that's when you go back to like Ocarina of Time 3D, Majora's Mask 3D, and you do the same on a much larger scale. Maybe they had ported Miitopia as an experiment, and Nintendo's like, well, hell, we could sell this,
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what I hear is like the hope from folks. Because yeah, I agree. I would much rather Grezzo's considerable talent be used elsewhere.
Yeah. And let's just also hope they don't turn into Vicarious.
Oh
Yeah.
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 And then what else? I feel like I feel like with this, that means that we're not getting Four Swords online. We're getting Triforce Heroes online.
Oh God.
I hope not.
Though, I will say in terms of like the Vicarious situation, I think I would be entirely okay with Nintendo buying up a company like Grezzo and just saying, hey, you're the guys that take our back catalog content and port it to modern stuff, because Nintendo very clearly doesn't have the bandwidth to accommodate that. And it would be great if they had a in-house development team dedicated just to that.
Oh, what if they did? We would live in a totally different world if Grezzo did New Super Mario Bros. U Deluxe. Like, that game was probably the bottom of the barrel when it comes to Wii U ports. Like, they did nothing with that.
Oh yeah,
they could have done so much more. Like, I wanted, like, what if they had like a Bowser's Fury type expansion? But anyway, Animal Crossing Mario items. We knew it was coming. This is cool to finally see it. But what is cool is the warp pipes, and that's huge for. I mean, obviously, I haven't played Animal Crossing in quite a bit, but I'm hoping to get back into it. But having it, first of all, going from place to place on your island is one thing, but going from in your house to another part of an island is massive. And so I haven't had a chance to check it out yet because it is out now, but man, this is huge for the Animal Crossing ecosystem.
No, I agree 100%.
All right. Anyone interested in Star Wars Hunters?
They didn't show anything.
No.
Yeah.
Knockout City. I think everyone has said this to death. it's an interesting looking game, but the the commercial was just like, why? Just a big question mark. Especially another thing too, I see all over Twitter, like people are all over that 8-bit princess or the pixelated princess character. So
Yeah.
and then
She would be a great character for a game that isn't Knockout City.
yeah,
Yeah,
and she's not even in the
exactly.
game. She's not like
Yeah,
they
I
just
know.
created all these
That's
characters for nothing. Like I
Yeah,
guess it was
it's
supposed to be like
funny.
a reference to like I guess Mario and then like a Madden type game and then like a League type game. So I honestly when I first saw this trailer I thought these were already like pre-established characters. Like I didn't know that they were just created for this trailer. So it was
Yep.
such a weird thing.
It's interesting to me. Like a lot of people asked when Mario Kart Live Home Circuit came out, like, oh, why doesn't Nintendo buy these guys? And then I saw this trailer. I'm like, oh, that's why. I wouldn't
Yeah.
buy these guys either, based on what they're working on.
I mean, I think on the clapper thing that they did at the very beginning, I think it said EA on there too.
I thought
Well,
it was
yeah.
Apex.
Oh yeah,
EA is, I want to say, or no, isn't or no, they're not publishing it, right? Is it? It's Velen is developing, but is EA publishing Knockout?
it might be. I don't know. I just saw it at the beginning of the trailer. Let's see here. Oh no, this is a completely different trailer. Never mind. I'm not even. I thought this was part of the direct, but it's a completely separate trailer that they released.
Mhm.
And anyway, about the game though in particular, like, are you guys interested in picking it up or checking it out? I mean, it's an interesting concept,
Not really.
but
Believe it or not, I am.
Okay.
I like the idea of like one. I think there's way too many games in this space that are just shooters, right?
right.
Splatoon is a game I absolutely am in love with because it took the shooter concept and at least turned it completely on its head, made it more about, painting the environment than taking people out.
Mm-hmm.
I like the idea of this game, taking something that we all played as kids and turning it up to 11. Dodgeball. Everybody's played dodgeball at least once in their life.
Yeah.
And so taking that and kind of cranking it up to an absurd degree sounds fun. Do I think it will be a long lasting, like really great time? Absolutely not. I have very low expectations. But I think it's just interesting enough of a hook for me to at least play it like once or twice and before I render a verdict. They've got me at least on the fence about it. Is
Yeah.
the best I can say.
All right, next up is World's End Club, which the art style is really interesting. The first thing I thought of was Pokemon. But about the game itself, I don't know if I'm going to be interested in it. We have to see a little bit more, but I know the game's already out on Apple Arcade. I think you guys said that in your episode. So I'm intrigued, but like the first thing they said, created by the Danganronpa developers. Where's Danganronpa on Switch? I want to play Danganronpa on Switch.
That is a very good question.
I mean, it's not even on PS Vita anymore. They took it off, so like can't even play it I think other than like the collection on PS4, which is very hard to come by for some reason.
Yeah, one thing I'll say is that NIS is one of my favorite publishers.
Mhm.
Like they're just really cool people in general. And they're one of the last publishers that still goes all out for special editions on like every game they make. So if you're a fan of any of their stuff, like they've always got a really cool special edition lined up with like art books and
Right.
just really cool additional stuff that I wish the bigger companies like Nintendo would do. Like I love Nintendo, but
Yeah.
they're not great about special editions all the time.
Oh, the special edition will be for a limited time. That's what they'll do.
Yeah. Yeah. So this game looks cool. I keep telling myself I'm going to check it out on Apple Arcade, but I hate playing games on my phone.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I just haven't, but I intend to give it a shot before too much time passes me by. And
Mhm.
art style looks cool, game looks kind of interesting, but I'm just not there yet. Like I don't feel strongly one way or the other about this. Like I don't hate it, I don't love it. I can't even motivate myself to grab the phone I'm holding in my hand every day and download it for free. So
Yeah.
that should tell you something about the game. Like it just kind
Mhm.
of failed. It fizzles out with me almost immediately.
Yeah.
Could be wrong. I'd love to be wrong, but I really don't think I am. I don't think this game's gonna make a dent.
Yeah. There's
Probably not.
also a few highlight reels that they did. I don't want to go too much detail because they were rapid fire, so there's like no point really looking at them. I do want to talk about Apex, and I've never played Apex before, but I'm really interested in trying this out because my computer can't run it. So I'm definitely excited for that. And also my friend told me, and I haven't really looked too much into it, but he told me that Valorant may be coming to Switch as well, which I am really into Valorant. My computer is actually able to run that one, and so hopefully it comes out for Switch. And just like you said, there's a lot of shooters, but there's not too many on the Switch, like at least first-person shooters, and that's something that's severely lacking, at least for me, or well, that I can find. Like I've been always wanting like a Black Ops trilogy on Switch. I mention this all the time on our show, like, but I feel like that's never gonna happen because I don't think Activision cares enough.
Yeah, Activision doesn't see the value in Switch. Apex Legends, though, I mean, my computer can run it, and I was
Mm-hmm.
talking about this on TNT with Blessing from Kind of Funny a little while back. It just has never been a game. There's an interesting thing about the Switch where I feel like the bar of entry is lowered so significantly for people that might, want to play a game. Like nothing has stopped me up to this point in time from downloading Apex and
Yeah.
installing it, but I just haven't. It hasn't ever been enough of an interest for me to like log into my computer, go to whatever storefront I need to go to and get it. But
Mm-hmm.
on the Switch, I'm like, oh man, that'd be cool to like just have something on the TV and play in handheld mode.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll run out to the eShop and I'll grab Apex Legends, sure, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe I'll love it, and maybe it will be enough of a draw to get me to go get it on my PC and actually get good, as it were.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but the Switch is just such a intimate device that I feel like, oh yeah, it's way worth, it's so much easier to try games out on there, and I feel less pressure because I don't have to dedicate it as like my sole mode of
Mm-hmm.
entertainment. I can be distracted and play Apex, because I don't care enough about it yet, but maybe that will change. Like maybe I'll get drawn in, maybe I'll get hooked, and then maybe I will be the guy, you know, cursing the fact that my monitor is only 60 hertz and I need
Yeah.
144 to get good headshots or whatever. But and I think that's kind of I think that is something that I really appreciate about the Switch in general, like the nature of the
Yeah.
Switch, because it makes me feel it's much more of a casual gaming device. And so when I think about games like Apex, I'm like, I didn't jump in the first 6 weeks, so everybody on the PC will just murder me the instant I get in. But if I join on the Switch, what are the odds that half the players are doing the same thing I'm doing, like watching
Yeah.
Netflix, but also just playing the game on Switch. So I'm like, I feel like it would be a much easier way to get into a game like this. So
Yeah.
I'm
This.
I'm excited for it. I'm excited as hell. I'll be
Yeah.
there
Yeah.
day one.
The Switch for me is like a console. Like I have a lot of games that I just downloaded and bought, and just it's just sitting there in my downloads list. But I have so much storage anywhere, so it's just like I have Cuphead and stuff like that. I'm really bad at games, so like Cuphead is definitely not a game I should be playing. But like every once in a while, I'll open it up and see if I can get through a level or something. So the Switch, at least in my mindset, other than like the big heavy hitters, I just have like a collection of small games like Hello Neighbor, Cuphead, stuff like that. That I'm just like, oh, maybe I can pop in real quick, but
Mm.
things like that. Is there anything else from those like mini highlight reels that you guys were interested in? If you,
Not really. I don't really remember any of them.
yeah, I don't
Yeah, I
either.
was gonna say they kind of faded from memory
Yeah.
shortly after the direct was over.
Speaking of fading from memory, DLC for Hyrule Warriors Age of Calamity is coming, which we all knew. Like from day one, DLC was
Mm.
coming. But
Yeah.
probably the most interesting thing about this is that it showed up, it popped on screen for 2 seconds and then gone. I don't know why they did it for such a short amount of time, but I'm excited. It's not, obviously it being on screen for 2 seconds should say enough about Nintendo, saying they're just like, here's DLC, whatever. I don't think they really care too much. At least that's what it seems like. And the DLC that is coming isn't like massive, like huge story breaking, groundbreaking stuff. It's just
Mhm.
mild improvements and cool character cosmetics. It looks like.
Yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I agree with you 100%. It just felt like a throwaway announcement,
Hmm.
like a gimme, like, hey, we know you want this. Here it is. You get uh what's Pura and Robbie.
Yeah.
And
Mhm.
it's like, okay, of all the characters in
Yeah.
Zelda history, like these are the ones I probably want the least. Like,
Mhm.
Same.
I don't care about these guys.
I
Like, I
think
would love to see Breath of the Wild versions of other historically important characters. Like this is I thought that DLC for this game would be the time where you just go wild with fan
Yeah.
service. You know, like, hey, we're gonna take the Ocarina of Time characters and dump them into the world of Breath of the Wild. Like, here you go. Here's Darunia. You know,
Mhm.
that would have been dope. I would have been
Yeah,
hyped as hell
yeah,
for that. Like, as
Yeah.
with what I saw, I was like, do I even need to buy this DLC?
yeah.
Like, I don't care. I
Yeah.
mean, you know, oh, Link's gonna get a new outfit if you pre-order, but we're also not gonna show you what it is.
Right?
What the hell,
Yeah.
man? Like,
Mhm. That's
yeah.
weird. Um, speaking of like characters that you could just pop in, whatever happened to the Dekus? Like, are they just sort of now the Koroks? Like, what happened to them? I don't.
That's
I'm
a
not like
really good
super
question.
in
Yeah.
Zelda lore, but they just
Because the timeline of Zelda is just so jacked up, like it's really hard to know if Breath of the Wild takes like we don't know where in the timeline Breath of the Wild takes place, and it gets muddled as you go along because you find almost evidence of Breath of the Wild being a convergence point for every timeline because you find stuff about the Hero of Winds, you find stuff about Twilight Princess Link,
Oh,
you
yeah.
find stuff about the Hero of Time. Like they're all, and I get it. I mean, I will be the first to say that Nintendo definitely just makes these games and then tries to figure out where in the Zelda timeline they fit way later on
Mhm.
when fans
Yeah.
are like, yo, we care, because Nintendo, as much as I love them and as much as I love Breath of the Wild, they don't care where these
Yeah.
things fit into a larger timeline. They're like, yo, we're going to include some fan service and people are going to like that. And like 5% of our fans are going to care about, you know, overarching lore and where this fits. But Nintendo doesn't care. They're like, yeah, it happened maybe like over here some point.
Yeah.
So I don't think that there was literally any thought given to that, but Breath of the Wild just kind of has. I guess Deku's like don't exist in the world of Breath of the Wild because
Yeah.
there's no Deku tree, right? Which I thought was, well, they're kind of sorta is. I mean, clearly, the Great Tree in where you get the
Mhm.
Master Sword is supposed to be the Deku tree, but they don't call them that. And yeah, they, you know, then there's the Koroks, which I guess are kind of like their take on yeah, you know
Like
what?
Wind
Actually, the
Waker
Koroks
Deku.
greatly resemble the little Deku Tree's children from Wind Waker, like
Mhm.
almost exactly, with the leaf on the face and the whole thing. So I would guess that that's what it is, but Nintendo's never going to explain it, and you'll just go cross-eyed trying to think about it.
Yeah. All right, and finally for the minors or the minor things is the Ninja Gaiden trilogy. What do you guys think? I'm not into
Going on
Ninja
to it.
Gaiden, so
Ninja Gaiden was one of those games that I tried on Xbox, and this was before, well, obviously before Dark Souls, before the whole kind of new fad. And I it's unfair to call it a fad, but like the new wave of hard games that are hard on purpose. So this was kind of the first modern game that people were like, you know, that had a reputation for being difficult, and that was the primary allure of that game, is that it's difficult.
right.
I hate it. I'm not a big fan. Like, I don't like games that are hard for the sake of being hard. I think that, you know, I prefer story, narrative, core gameplay mechanics that are satisfying to just straight up difficulty. I kind of liken it to food that is spicy for the sake of being spicy. Like, I don't I like spicy food, but I don't like food that is just spicy. Like, I like it to have a little flavor to it, you know.
Right.
And I feel like Ninja Gaiden lacks that entirely. Like, it's Ryu Hayabusa is not a compelling character. You know, we all know why Tomonobu Itagaki designed the female ninjas in the game the way he designed them.
I don't know about that,
Which is
so
extremely off-putting in 2021. Like it yeah. I just think that there's not enough there for me to want to muddle through the difficulty of these games. Like, I saw them and I'm like, great for people that really enjoy that type of super hard game, because I get it. There are people out there, you know, again, using the analogy, there's people out there that just want to eat the spiciest thing they can eat because it's spicy and they want to prove they can eat it. And I get that, you know, that's the same type of person that plays Ninja Gaiden. They want to play a hard game to prove that they're skilled enough to beat a game this hard. And if that's you, I am so happy for you, because that is what you're getting with these, and I'm just not that guy. I don't like getting frustrated. I don't like having to repeat the same level 15 times just to figure it out. I
Yeah.
like a game that I feel like I'm being challenged, but not that the whole point is for me to overcome some huge, thing to get to the ending. It's just never been. I don't like being stressed out when I play. The whole point of me playing is to not be stressed out.
Yeah.
I just don't have the patience to learn the mechanics enough to get good.
Yep.
Yeah. Now is it precedent for Ryu and Smash?
Honestly,
Man,
I feel like that rumor's been going around for so long that I don't buy it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think if we were to get another third-party character at this point, it would almost have to be a Bandai Namco character, because they're the ones making the game and they are severely underrepresented.
I know. So weird.
I feel like Nintendo would have to throw them another bone here. Like, they got Pac-Man. I mean, they
it,
got to
yeah.
get something else in there.
Yeah.
A character from a Tales game, a character from any other Bandai Namco franchise. Klonoa would be great.
Of
Ash and I
course.
would be very happy about that, but I don't see Klonoa happening. He's
Yeah.
long been irrelevant, but
I mean,
Ryu
Banjo.
Hayabusa just doesn't feel right.
I mean,
Well, that's
Banjo
true.
hasn't been
Banjo-
relevant for who knows how long, and here he is.
Yeah,
So,
I think Banjo got a pass because he was kind of linked very heavily to the N64. So you can kind of count him as a piece of Nintendo's legacy, even though he was a Microsoft character at the time of his inclusion.
Speaking of Smash, Pyra and Mithra are now in Smash, and in my own personal opinion, not my character of choice, but Steve was my guy. He was the thing to make it into Smash. I don't care about the rest, but this is more of just patching up holes that were left, like, having Min Min in Smash and, things like that. It's just like, and who was the other character that, I forgot who it was that, Byleth, sorry, Byleth. It's just sort of just like, okay, here's your Persona 2, Persona, here's your Xenoblade 2 rep, boom, there you go. Just sort of filling in holes and, just, things like that. So, like, eventually, more than likely, one of the last two characters is going to be a Pokemon. At least I assume so. If you guys catch my drift and understand what I'm trying to say.
I feel like it's going to be another Pokemon.
Yeah, I feel like Gen 8 Pokemon is almost required at this point.
Yeah.
Pyra and Mithra were in development, or not in development, but Sakurai wanted to add them to the initial roster. So it makes sense that he's kind of catching up with things he wanted to do at this point.
Yeah.
As for, the rest of that, we'll find out in a few days, because they announced that the Sakurai Presents will be happening in 2 days on March 4th. So we'll talk about that next time and see how we feel about the characters. Monster Hunter Rise, how are you feeling about that? Is it come out soon? I don't know when it comes out.
It does. It comes out, I want to say, at the end of March.
Okay.
So we got a few weeks left. But Monster Hunter Rise is not my game.
Me neither.
Monster Hunter in general is not my series. Fortunately, we have Brandon, who has been on a couple episodes of TNT, who helps us with a lot of our editing stuff. He is a huge Monster Hunter fanatic, and he's over the moon about it. I'm personally waiting for stories. That is the Monster Hunter that I personally am really hyped for.
What about you, Hylian? How do you feel about Monster Hunter?
I've never been a Monster Hunter fan, but I do want to get into the series, so I am going to pick up Rise.
Okay.
Hopefully I like it.
All right. Mario Golf. Take it away, Hylian. I'm not a Mario sports guy at all. So
I am okay. So I'm not really big on the Mario sports games. Tennis is okay. Love baseball, but who knows? We're gonna get another baseball. My favorite has always been golf. Like the one on the 3DS is probably one of my most played 3DS games. So I'm optimistic that Super Rush is gonna be the Mario Golf game I've been waiting for, but I don't think we've seen enough yet.
Steve?
Yeah, Mario Golf looks really promising to me so far. So I skipped the 3DS game. I just didn't have time to play it. But I remember the GameCube game, and I loved that game. Like, I played an absurd amount of that game, and so I'm really hyped to see it on Switch. I personally love they have that. I want to say it was Rush mode, where you
Speed
run
golf.
to the next
Speed golf,
hole and
yeah.
you can, check each other and stuff like that. I'm like, that Looks like exactly what I want. So I'm really excited to see it, but I'm also with Hylian here. I got to see a bit more before I decide, before I give my verdict on my hype. But so far, cautiously optimistic.
Yeah, I'm definitely gonna check it out. I've bought a lot of, like I said before, like I bought a lot of Switch games that I know I'm never gonna play. That just sort of like Mario Party, for example, or sorry, Mario Tennis, for example. Like I never play it like myself, but like whenever I have like a party over, we may open up, Mario Tennis or Smash or whatever. So definitely something I might want to just try, but I know I'm gonna play it for like 30 minutes and be done. So
Yeah.
all right.
It just depends on the courses for me, because the ones we've seen in the trailer so far, they seem a little bland.
I wouldn't know the context. So, all right. So the next thing is Project Triangle Strategy, which I guess Octopath Traveler 2. Not my type of game. So
kind of, it's like Octopath Traveler Tactics.
Okay.
Is a way to describe it. I bounced off this like way harder than I thought I would. I started the demo and I was 15 minutes into just dialogue, and I was like, nope. I was like, this is not how you start a demo for me. I just want to get dropped into a combat tutorial, play a combat scene, and then you can inundate me with lore, but it's a demo. Like, I don't want that from a demo. So I was like, you know what? I'll wait till somebody plays the full game and tells me if it's good, because as much as I enjoy tactics games, I'm not willing to sit through exposition to learn about a world that I'm not even convinced I want to be in yet.
And the name of the war too, it's just like it's between two factions, the Salt and the Iron. It's the Salt Iron War. Okay. Like
it to me read like a Rick and Morty interdimensional cable skit where it was just like they were making stuff up.
But it's just one of those cases where we have to see more to actually see where this goes.
To be clear, even though I'm really down on the demo, that doesn't mean I'm necessarily down on the game itself. I just think that it's a very poorly put together demo in terms of getting you to grips with the gameplay side of the game and helping you decide if this is something you want to purchase, because I just couldn't even make it through the intro to it before I was like, all right, I'll just wait. Because I'm sure the game actually does those basic gameplay design things where it does its best to get you into a battle quickly and teach you about the mechanics of the game, and then goes through the story. That's just basic game design 101. So I think that they just clipped out a section in the middle of the game and were like, here you go, this is what you'll play. And I think that they prioritized world building over helping people decide if the gameplay was for them, and that's unfortunate.
Yeah. All right, the next thing is Zelda Skyward Sword HT. It's been rumored and leaked for who knows how long, and I'm excited. I've never played Skyward Sword. I'm a late Zelda guy. My first Zelda game that I ever had was Breath of the Wild, and then the first game I ever beat was Link's Awakening. So definitely excited for this. Again, we talked about this earlier. Where's Zelda 35? I'm happy that there's button controls. I am not happy that the community is angry about it being $60, but what can you do?
Yeah.
You guys have anything else to say about it?
Skyward Sword just isn't my favorite Zelda game. Like, the story is incredible, but the gameplay just wasn't my favorite. So I'll admit I was super hoping for Twilight Princess and Wind Waker to be announced first. And when it wasn't, I was a little bit, I don't want to say hurt, but bummed. But I'm absolutely going to pick it up again and give it another shot.
Yeah, I wrote an article on my old blog years and years ago at this point that I don't want to say was designed to make people angry, but that I knew would make people angry, titled Skyward Sword is the best Zelda game.
Ugh,
and it definitely attracted a variety of opinions. But to be fair, it was my actual belief. I wasn't writing something I didn't believe, but Breath of the Wild came in and stole that title very easily away from Skyward Sword. And my main linchpin on my argument about why I loved Skyward Sword more was because it introduced some more light RPG elements that I felt had been missing from the series since Zelda 2. And I loved that about this game. And Breath of the Wild kind of took that a bit further, like you could equip items and know how much damage they do. Like the menu gave you indications of like all that kind of stuff. That being said, I think that Skyward Sword is a hard sell for Nintendo, because I realize that the fan base is split almost down the middle on this one. So I'm really surprised that was like their first salvo, and
Yeah.
this is how we're gonna celebrate Zelda, right?
That they honestly, I feel like they should have just announced Zelda 35, or like they at least make mention of it, saying, "Hey, it won't start until April, whatever." And then they should have started off with the Wind Waker Twilight Princess or something along those lines, and then announce Skyward Sword later. I think that would have been a lot better, and people would have been a lot more satisfied. Especially like for you, Highland, you were kind of angry a little bit, the day of the direct, and then like,
Yeah.
and then like, now that we sort of know that maybe still, the leak could be wrong, that Wind Waker and Twilight Princess will be coming out soon, or at least be announced soon. So I feel like it would have been a lot better for them to do that first and then Skyward Sword, but
I don't
Yeah,
want to say I was angry, because I really wasn't, because Skyward Sword absolutely deserved a remake. But I felt it was the most likely way to get Wind Waker and Twilight Princess, because that was just easy.
Yeah.
You can simply port it to the Switch, 2 games, there you go.
I agree with that. It's definitely takes a lot less effort. The one thing I want to say is that I feel like the whole Zelda fan base can agree that those Joy-Con are dope.
Oh yeah,
I'm
Mhm.
definitely getting those.
I already pre-ordered Breath of the Wild, Skyward Sword, but I just
Same.
didn't get a chance to. I was about to, but the pre-orders weren't available, and then once they were gone. So
Oh, yeah, they're not going to last
Yeah.
long.
I mean, this is one of like the first pre-orders that I've heard in a while, other than PS5s that were sold out. So like we haven't heard that from 3D All Stars or Age of Calamity. So it's pretty interesting.
Yep.
All right, finally, the thing that I thought was Smash, Splatoon 3 is surprisingly coming. I didn't think that they would do another game on the same console. It's interesting, and I guess it also probably makes more precedent that a Switch Pro is coming too a little bit, because it's also in 2022. But it's interesting. And what's really cool is that it sounds like the Salmonids are going to have more of an important story connection, and Chaos is what actually rules the land now since the Final Fest. So
Yeah. This saved the direct for me.
Mhm.
Like, I think I have like 400 hours in the Splatoon 2. It's one of my favorites. I really was not expecting 3 to come out on Switch. I thought they'd save it for the next generation. But man, I need this.
yeah, I mean, look at Steve's background. Splatoon. It's like Among Us now. Oh, nice. It's like Among Us, like that Among Us meme where it's just like anything you look at, it's like, oh, it's the imposter, and then just every time you see those two colors, it's Splatoon 2.
Yeah, I'm with you, Hylian. Splatoon 3 was not an announcement I even remotely expected. I think it does, like you were saying, Slime Boss, it lends credence to the idea that there's a Switch Pro coming next year. Because when you start to think about Breath of the Wild 2, Splatoon 3, all we need is a Mario game, and we'll have the trifecta, like recreating 2017, right?
Yeah.
And
like literally almost to a
And
T
there's
now.
Pokemon, which makes it better.
Hey,
yeah,
Arms 2, anyone?
man, I would love an Arms 2. My friend Eddie, who does PR work for Nintendo, like that is his game, and he plays it still, like to this day, every single day.
Wow.
I mean, I see him on my friends list pop up, and I don't even need to look. I'm like, yeah, he's playing Arms. But I think I've seen him play another game like maybe 2 or 3 times, but yeah, I would say though Splatoon 3 definitely blew me away. Like I was shocked that game is, I mean, I was during the direct, I was like, oh my god, it's so soon. Like, how is this happening? And then I'm thinking about it, I'm like,
I
no,
remember
it's 5 years. That is
Yeah, it's been a
It
while,
is
but
wild.
it just seems like Splatoon is just one of those games like a Fortnite, a Minecraft, where they just have one game and they sort of update it. But it seems like it's almost like a weird amalgamation of an update-y game, also a sequel game, if that makes sense. Like it's
It
like a
looks
combination between like a
full-blown sequel to me,
Minecraft and
more
like an
than-
also
Yeah.
it's a weird.
Yeah. The thing that I love about Splatoon is that they let the fans decide the direction of the series, which is just so cool. And it's literally survival of the fittest. Like it's not vote in a poll. It's not, send us your ideas to the Nintendo newsletter. It is get in there and battle over what you want the sequel to be about. Because I remember
we didn't know
the first
that.
one the Final Fest with the first one, I was like, oh man, like when Splatoon 2 came out, I'm like, they took the Final Fest results and rolled it into Splatoon 2. So when the Final Fest for Splatoon 2 was announced, I was like, Order versus Chaos, we're going to decide like the setting for Splatoon 3. And I had been saying that on GX, and I was like, I'm going Chaos because that sounds wild. I was like, I want to see a post-apocalyptic Splatoon. And so, you know, I was more invested in the final Splatfest for Splatoon 2, knowing that it would influence 3 than I had been in any Splatfest in either game prior. And I mean, I just grinded through that, you know, hoping that Chaos would win. And I was so happy when we did. I was like, oh man, like the possibilities. So that's why when the direct came up after all those hours spent, you know, fighting people over this in the final Splatfest, I was like, we won, and this is what we're getting. Like, I knew it was Splatoon 3 the minute I saw where that inkling was sitting. I was like, oh man, it's a sequel, and I was so excited for it.
And what was the first Splatfest or Final Fest?
Callie versus Marie.
Yep.
Oh, okay, makes sense.
Yeah, it was much. I mean, looking back on it, it was much lower stakes because we got Marina and Pearl, but you know, the Squid Sister that lost in the original Splatoon was the one that we ended up having to find in Splatoon 2. But this one, you know, it was like, okay, Order versus Chaos. I imagine, obviously there's no way to know, that if Order had won, that Splatoon 3 would probably have taken place in Inkopolis. And since Chaos won, we're in this new kind of messed up, and you can see parts of the world are just jacked up now.
Well,
so
if Order won, wouldn't it be sort of like a Inkopolis, like futuristic Inkopolis, kind of like what is that city called in Pokemon Sun and Moon where Necrozma is? I would imagine it like that, because like the main tower in the middle.
Yeah, I think there's definitely possibilities for that. It could have also been like a totalitarian regime.
Oh
like everybody's very oppressed or whatever. I mean, I don't know. I just thought Chaos. I was like Mad Max cross Splatoon.
And this is literally what it is. It's it's kind of cool because like with the first one, it's just like, oh, I mean, it's probably a lot more than just a model swap, but it's basically just a model swap between Callie and Marie. But now this is basically full on. Like if you picked one or the other, this is two different timelines here now, two different games, or well, two different timelines, like in real life. Like if one or the other won, that's basically the entire game built from the ground up based on that decision. So
yep,
a lot higher stakes.
I hope at some point, if Nintendo had much plans for the game, if Order would have won, I hope those come out at some GDC or something.
Agreed.
Yeah, like here's the sketches for what it would look like, stuff like that.
Exactly.
Well, I'm lucky enough to have interviewed Hisashi Nogami a couple of times in my career so far, and I can tell you that as soon as we go back to like regular shows, he is one of the first people I want to talk to.
Yeah.
I will be banging down Nintendo's door being like, let me talk to Nogami about Splatoon 3, please, because that is absolutely something I'd want to ask. Like, hey, what if Order won? What would have happened? Because I think that would be a really compelling conversation to hear. But I agree. I love when Nintendo goes to GDC and kind of shows off these what could have been or what our prototypes look like kind of phases.
Yeah.
Because they showed us what Splatoon 2 or Splatoon had rabbits and tofu.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. So
one last thing before I know Hylian has to go, but we'll continue on the conversation. I know he's not super into Pokemon anyway, so but I was gonna say, like, where's Mario Kart? Because it seems like that team is sort of hands on deck with Splatoon. You know, since the last 3 games, like we haven't had a true next gen Mario Kart. So, is that even happening anymore? Is Mario Kart 8 Deluxe it? Like,
I mean, we have to get a Mario Kart 9
eventually, but on the Switch,
well, it is. I think we will get a Mario Kart 9 on the Switch. I don't think it's happening this year. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if we got an announcement of it next year. Because, again, Nintendo, you know, anecdotally, evidence kind of seems to be pointing toward them recreating 2017 in 2022. And Mario Kart 8 Deluxe released in 2017.
Good point.
I could definitely see that I mean, but the counterpoint to that is that Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is still selling great.
Yeah.
Nintendo hasn't had to update it in years, and people are still buying it in droves.
The
It's closing in on what, 40 million copies or
Yeah.
something like that?
Around that, yeah.
it's one of the developers I thought said that like if Mario Kart 8 Deluxe does good, like I think they kind of sounded unsure about it because it was like one of the first ports. That if it does well, like maybe we'll add more DLC or something. We haven't heard anything about that, so maybe because it was so successful that they're working on a sequel in the background. But it just got me kind of confused because it's the same. What I found out is that it's the same team as Splatoon. That's the Splatoon team and they've been kind of hammering down on Splatoon. It's just kind of like, well, where's Mario Kart? You know?
I could see the next Mario Kart game being the Smash Ultimate of Mario Kart. Like,
Please.
I mean, because what you really want to do with a game that sells as well as Mario Kart, 38 million copies, the best-selling game on the whole platform, until Animal Crossing inevitably overtakes it here in the next quarter. But I mean, still, you would want to position any game that sells that well as having repeated opportunities to sell more stuff. So, your person that picked up Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, ideally, if you had known it was going to sell that well, you would have said, hey, here's a course pass for it, and give us $30 and we'll give you 12 new courses this year, or 5, 6, whatever the appropriate amount is, and hey, we'll add a couple new racers too, and just keep doing that like they're doing with Smash. So I think Mario Kart 9 is probably taking longer because Nintendo is probably asking themselves those questions, like, how do we continue to monetize Mario Kart for 4 years after we release it, so that everybody that buys it can say, oh man, I want new courses. I mean, because I think about Mario Kart now and I love it, but I don't play it anymore.
Yeah.
And that's because you can only race the same track so many times before you invariably get bored and it becomes something that you just trot out when people come over. But for the last year, nobody's been coming over.
I mean, I've been bored with Mario Kart 8 before even 8 Deluxe came out. Like, it sort of boosted that a little bit when it came out, but this game came out in 2014, probably before that. And we've been having it for almost 6 years now, 7 years now. So it's just like, where do we go from here? Like, I've been, and it makes me want to go back to the older Mario Karts because that's a new, different experience for me. Because we don't have anything new right now. But
absolutely agree. It is very long in the tooth at this point. But
yeah,
I mean, millions of people are still buying it. So, from Nintendo's perspective, it's like, well, this game's still making us a lot of money. They're probably trying to time it for when sales slow down, but
it's not.
Inexplicably, they aren't. Yeah.
All right. So, Hylian, it's up to you now. Are you going to dip out or?
I can stay a little bit longer. I want to give some of my thoughts on Pokemon.
All right. So, Pokemon Direct. Holy shit. This is all I can say. So, first of all, Diamond and Pearl remakes. Literally, okay, one of the funniest things is that it showed up on screen. I was like, oh, yep, here we go. It's Diamond and Pearl remakes. And then as soon as the chibi things, like, I started dying of laughter because I knew my friend who was super adamant about Diamond and Pearl remakes, like, he loves Gen 4. As soon as I saw the chibi likes, I'm like, he's going to hate this. He's going to hate this so much. But beyond that, I think it's really, I think it's definitely a step up from the tree, in my opinion. And I think the chibi element works a lot better for these games, although it looks a little bit off-putting. But I kind of want to see what Ilka can do. I'm hoping that there's a little bit more than just a faithful recreation. I'm hoping that there's like a Platinum Delta episode or something. But I want to see what Ilka can do, because if Ilka can take over the remakes, then Game Freak can focus on, bigger, better, hopefully better experiences with the main series games. And Legends is sort of like a beta test for that. If Legends does well, Gen 9 is going to be huge. And I fully believe that. And so if Ilka takes over the remakes, then Game Freak doesn't have to worry about that, and they can put more time and effort into the main series games.
To bounce off that, I think if Legends is a big success, which I'm pretty sure it will be, I don't think it'll impact Gen 9 as much. I think it'll impact Gen 10.
Okay.
I'd imagine they've got a good bit of work on Gen 9 already in progress.
And anything else I have to say about it, the first thing I saw when it comes to okay, so it seems like there's a few different art styles here. There's Let's Go, and then there's Sword and Shield, which a lot of people hate, and then there's Snap. And the Legends is sort of looking like a cross between Snap and Sword and Shield, or a better version of Sword and Shield, and that's what I really enjoy because Snap looks beautiful, and I don't know why they wouldn't just reuse those assets for a new game because Snap is like the most beautiful Pokemon has looked to date. So, or new Pokemon Snap, I guess.
That is unfortunately a super easy answer to give. And that's just that Snap is, from a technical perspective, a much less demanding game. So you can ratchet up the quality of your models because it's on rails and it's controlled in the sense like you're not even rendering the player. So it's like a first person games require a lot less perspective or a lot less horsepower than one might think because the camera angle is so tight because you never can see the player. Then you can afford to spend that additional overhead on just making everything look that much better. I agree. Snap is an incredibly good looking game, and I would love a Pokemon game that looks like that, but I think the Switch is already struggling with Legends because the frame rate in that trailer was bad.
I mean, it's very early too. Like we are a year out from this thing, and I have high hopes for it.
I do too.
Yeah.
I honestly believe, and I've been saying this since Sword and Shield, that a game like Legends is the future of Pokemon.
Yeah.
I think that is where the franchise is headed. I think that the Wild area was basically their way of testing that out and seeing like, hey, does this work in an actual full-on Pokemon game? Can we make a game that looks and controls like this? And I think Legends is the next baby step toward that goal. Like, okay, now we're going to take a game and we're going to put it completely in the quote-unquote wild area and see if we can make a game that is entirely based around those mechanics work. And then I think if they prove that, then like Hylian was saying in either Gen 9 or Gen 10, we will get a proper mainline Pokemon game that is just that.
Yeah.
And I think that is incredibly exciting. I've been wanting something like this since Pokemon XD on the GameCube.
Yeah.
So just to see them pushing the envelope with Pokemon, I'm really happy about.
I made a video and it was 6 minutes long just talking about because people were so upset about Diamond and Pearl that and I a 6-minute video, but I couldn't publish it because Twitter, in their videos is a little weird. I didn't want to make it a YouTube video because it was like not really that important. But if, and like I was saying before, so Diamond and Pearl, it looks fine. It looks a little jarring, the characters, but it looks good. But if Ilka can take over the remake side of things and, Legends, I guess I'm just reiterating what I was saying before, but Legends is again just a huge improvement for Pokemon. Like I can't wait what happens next. So
yeah, for the first time in a long time, I'm genuinely excited for the future of Pokemon.
Yeah.
Like I get excited when the games themselves are coming out and I'm hyped for them in the moment. But over the last few years, I've been like, man, I cannot wait to see where Game Freak takes this series now that they're on. I thought Sword and Shield would be a little more ambitious than it is because they had the extra horsepower of the Switch. But I kind of get the sense that Game Freak has this kind of longer term game plan that they're working toward with the future of the series. And I'm here for it, man. I want to see what they've got planned. I want to see how these games turn out. Legends is probably the first Pokemon game in a very long time that I am just going to pre-order the hell out of.
Yeah.
Because, Pokemon, you never have to pre-order Pokemon. It's going to be available. But there's something about Legends that I'm just like, let's go. I got to play this. Like, I need to be playing it at midnight in Australia. I need to have this as soon as it's publicly available somewhere on Earth.
And don't forget, it's going to be a lot cheaper too because you don't have to buy 2 games. You can only buy one. You only get to buy one. So there's that, too.
But I do think it's weird that they called it Pokemon Legends Arceus. Like, does that mean? I mean, granted, I agree that there's no B-side game for this one. But does that mean that this is like we're gonna get Pokemon Legends? Let's just say Cerebi or Pokemon Legends Mew or something like that. Further on down the line. And I do love the idea that they're taking Pokemon and going way back in time with it, like going back to the ancient quote unquote history of this world, so we can see you know, like the Pokeball has that weird like latch on the front. It
Yeah.
looks super old school. I love this idea that we're finally learning more about historically like the world of Pokemon.
Yeah.
And I love the idea that, you know, they could do this in different regions. And say like, oh, you know, like Pokemon that we traditionally only see as fossils in certain games, we could see them just in the wild,
Yeah.
which I think would be really cool. So
I had
I'm down.
I had a dream, well, not an actual dream, but like a dream for like the future of Pokemon, and like what they could like. I mean, knowing Game Freak, they'll never ever do this, but doubling down on the lore, because it's been severely lacking in the last 2 games. And so maybe this Legends series will literally be legends and myths, and be sort of this history lesson on the on basically more lore about the world that you're in. And then the mainline games will hopefully start giving us more stories about, you know, not just about like the evil teams and making each game sort of its own thing, but more like, and I mean, I guess they're kind of slowly building towards that. Everything about like the ultra wormholes and stuff. I was surprised to see them in the Crown Tundra. So, you know, having, you know, more lore about just the overall world of Pokemon is definitely appreciated. So,
For sure.
and the only time you ever see this is in the anime. So, and the anime is very minimal. So, what were you going to say about Pokemon, Hylian?
I'm gotta preface this by saying that I am not a big Pokemon fan. I buy every new game that comes out, play 5 to 10 hours, get bored, drop it, rinse, repeat. I'm actually pretty excited. Like the Gen 4 remakes, I love the art style. Like
I do too.
Same.
I don't know why
think if
people
they
are
would've went
upset.
with the Sword and Shield style, it wouldn't have looked anywhere near as good.
People will still be
people would
upset.
have wanted to see that, but they would have complained just as much as they are now.
Yeah.
And Legends, I honestly didn't think we'd get to this point so quickly. I thought Game Freak would take at least another 3-4 years before they actually tried to dip their feet in the water with this kind of style, but I'm so happy they did.
I have a personal theory about like what they were doing, and it seems like they obviously pushed the 3DS to its limit with Sun and Moon. Like there's some points where the game lags on original hardware, on original 3DS. So I feel like Sword and Shield was just using the exact same thing that they did with Sun and Moon. Like like it runs bad because it's not optimized, and I feel like it's because they don't know the hardware enough, and because they've been working with portables for so long, or well, dedicated portables for so long. And so the reason why it looks like that, or Sword and Shield looks like that, is because it's basically just another 3DS game. And with Let's Go, it looked good because I don't want to say they tried, but like it's a little bit easier to do something that you're a little bit more familiar with, because Kanto, that's a fairly easy game to reconstruct, I would think, because it's the first generation. Everyone knows it. Everyone loves it. It's easier than creating a whole new game in, you know, HD and stuff. And so I feel like now that they sort of got a hold on it, and then obviously maybe with the help of Bandai Namco with Snap, obviously, you know, it's turning out to be better for Pokemon, honestly, in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, there's those few nitpickers out there, but the future of Pokemon is bright finally, after so long.
Yeah,
I think so.
I agree with that. I think that they are being very wise in letting other development studios help out with some of those non-mainline games and letting them focus kind of on the big picture, you know, what the next big thing for Pokemon is. Because I mean, Diamond and Pearl are already games that exist, so it's not like you have to step in and say, you know, oh, change these details about it. Those details were already written forever ago, so you just have someone copying your homework, basically. You know, and with Pokemon Snap, the formula for those games, again, as we kind of discussed, is pretty simple. You know, Pokemon exist, take pictures of them. So Game Freak can, you know, really could provide direction more in the sense of like, okay, this Pokemon wouldn't behave that way, you know, or you know, you should do this to get this Pokemon to react favorably for a photo. Like those are things that are easier to pass along. Whereas, you know, hey, build an open world Pokemon game is probably not something you want to thrust onto another developer. But it also frees up Game Freak to take more time with these, which I think Sword and Shield illustrated that they obviously need. So I'm really happy, like you said, the future of Pokemon is probably brighter than it's ever been, and I'm really, really, for the first time, just like highly in here, I'm really excited to see where this goes, where they take this, because I don't think anybody can be 100% certain, but what we've seen so far is what I think a lot of fans have been clamoring for a long time.
And it's good too, because now we don't have to worry about a game coming out every year anymore. Because like we got, I mean, well, we're still kind of getting that, but you have, 2020 and 2021 sort of an off year for Pokemon. Like we're getting Diamond and Pearl remakes, yeah, but it's developed by Ilka. So Game Freak isn't hands-on with this. So, if, come Gen 9 time, the year after it comes out, DLC again. The year after that, maybe they just don't have anything, or maybe they have another Legends game or something. So instead of having, game after game back to back every year, they have some off years where other developers step in and make a game so that we still have a Pokemon game that year, but Game Freak themselves aren't developing them so that they have more time, because a lot of people are upset. They're like, why are you releasing games every single year? But having Ilka on board is definitely going to help a lot. And also, I guess, Bandai Namco too.
Right.
All right. Anything else about anything, really?
Been a busy month for Nintendo.
Yeah.
And it's finally awesome after a year and a half almost of getting Nintendo information just trickled out every once in a while.
Mm-hmm.
Agreed.
All right. Well, we have reached the end of the show finally, and it has been a blast. I'm finally happy to actually have a show. Like, we started this thing, and we were just like, oh, yeah, we have these high hopes for Nintendo. And then the second episode, we had nothing. So it's just like, oh, well, what are we going to do with this idea now?
We started in January, and we thought by the time we had our February show, we'd have some sort of direct.
Yep.
That did not happen.
And now March, we're finally uphill again. So hopefully this is going to be a good show.
Hopefully it stays that way.
Yeah. And I'm kind of happy we didn't have a guest last time, because it was a pretty rough show. So this time we had someone, and it's someone that at least I do. I don't know about Hylian, but we admire and we see all the time in the community. So it was an honor having you on, Mr. Bowling. So just thank you for joining us.
Oh, well, thank you guys so much. It was my honor to be here. I love talking Nintendo. I love talking about, Nintendo's my favorite company, and I'm especially happy that I was able to talk about the Direct with you guys. Like, I don't get tired of doing this stuff. That's why I'm in the game, because Nintendo is, all the companies. I love talking about stuff going on in the gaming industry, but I think, as with most of us, Nintendo holds a special place in my heart. And I'm always down to talk about Directs, the future of my favorite series, Zelda, Pokemon, Mario, you name it. I'm here for it. So thanks for having me. It was a blast, and I can't wait to see where the show goes from here. I will consider me subscribed.
Oh, thank you. And I guess, as you guys always say, where can we find you? Who are you?
Well,
who did we talk to for about 2 hours?
I know, right? So if you're looking for me personally, you can find me at twitter.com/Steve M. Bowling. That's my handle on pretty much every social media platform out there. If you're looking for where I create content, you can find me over at Good Vibes Gaming. That is the easiest way to get there, is good-vibes-gaming.com. That'll take you straight to our YouTube channel. Yeah, I know it says Nomcom still. We're working on fixing it, but we got to go through some legal stuff to get our name changed on the YouTube front. But other than that, twitter.com/GVG official and patreon.com/GV gaming if you'd like to support the content we create over there.
Yeah. And I also recommend you check out his co-founders, Ash Paulson and Derek Bittner, because they are also amazing people, and hopefully we can have them on the show eventually too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I will let them know that you guys are interested. I'm sure that they would love to hop in on future episodes.
Yeah,
that'd be great.
And I'm also a patron, so donate.
I know.
Guys.
Well, thank you. That means the world to all three of us. I can speak for Ash and Derek in that regard. I mean, every little bit helps. Every whatever tier anybody chooses to support at, we're incredibly grateful. And I just love the fact that, as you guys know, as patrons, we have this amazing Discord community.
Oh yeah.
And everybody there is just like, I thought moderating a Discord server, as you guys probably know, since we're talking on your Discord server right now, I thought that it would be awful. And it turns out that it is one of the easier parts of my job as a GVG co-founder, just because the community is full of just such amazing people like the two of you, that I don't have to worry about like waking up to a firestorm every day and trying to figure out who did what. So I'm really grateful. But yeah, and if you guys, ever want to, you feel free to tag Ash, Derek, or myself. If you'd like us on an episode, feel free to reach out to us on the Discord server you're part of. You can definitely do that. We got that self-promotion channel. You can say, hey, come on my show. And I promise you, if we have time, we'll make it work.
And well, I guess it's our turn to sort of promote ourselves here. Check us out on Twitter. I'm in the process of changing things up around here. This episode will be up on the Logo Movie, but we're going to try to create our own channel for Crazy Cat podcast related things, because I have two technically podcasts, Fairy Fountain and the Crazy Cat podcast, and we're sort of going to put it all into one dedicated channel, and also create more content that's outside of just podcasts as well. So don't forget to check it out when it comes out, and check us out on Twitter at Crazy Cat Podcast, or at Crazy Cat Studio now, and at Hylian Hero and Slime Boss on Twitter. And yeah, but Steve is more important here. So
never. I would never want to be called more important than anything.
So yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you, Steve, for joining us this week. And here's to a brighter future, both in the real world and with Nintendo. So
heck yeah,
absolutely.
All right.
Sentiment.
Goodbye.
Bye, everybody.
I'll see you guys later.
Honestly, off topic a little bit, but Scott the Woz and Nathaniel Bandy are probably my two favorite modern like Nintendo YouTubers, because they just take an idea of like reviewing something and they take it to the next level, and it's so cool.
Oh yeah, he's a great guy. I haven't met Nathaniel yet. I would
hopefully
love to have
he can be
him
on
the show, but
TNT,
yeah. So hopefully, but not yet.
Get the whole Minus World cast.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah, we'll get there eventually.
I mean, with John, like you guys starting off of John's channel, that basically boosted you guys a lot too. So I think everyone loves John.
John is an incredibly good friend. I am so grateful to him for doing that for us. And he's just, I'm so happy that before we all kind of split off and did our own things, that I got to meet John in person and hang out with him. We went to E3 together. We, hung out for a whole weekend. Or a whole week. It was just so much fun. And he's such a good guy. Like he is just as fun as you would probably expect him to be based on being a fan of his. Like we went out drinking, we went out, just doing stupid shit in LA the whole week of E3, and it's so fun to make videos and make content with him, because he's so goofy and brings like a really good energy to all his discussions, that I am jealous that we weren't able to form GVG before he left for Nintendo Life, but I'm really, really happy that, he's found a way to do this kind of work and do it in a way that makes sense with raising a family, because that is, I would say that was, really critical to why he left in the first place.
Yeah, nobody can blame him for that.
Yeah, for sure.
All right, we should probably start.
yeah, sorry.
I mean, I was recording this whole time, so maybe I'll like cut it in somehow, but that was I was gonna say also, would you say that John is cozy? That's like his thing.
Absolutely is cozy. I've got somewhere in this phone, I've got like videos of us goofing off that someday I should get his permission to share.
I can't wait for times to be normal again, so that I can go to E3 and experience what everyone or you guys experience.
Yeah, I imagine. Oh yeah, I imagine E3 2022 will be a real thing, but I also, my off the record prediction is that it will probably go back to being locked down to like industry only, because that is what I've heard is the reason Sony pulled out before the pandemic, is they were like, hey, look, we're not doing this for fans, we're doing this for media. It's a business opportunity for us, not a PR opportunity. So I think that there's
always PAX and
right
MAG too.
Exactly.
So
I think E3 was trying to overtake PAX, and that was probably not a wise choice on their part because E3 was never designed for that. So when they shifted to that, the show lost some of its identity, and it just became a lot harder to walk around, which was it was already difficult.
Oh yeah, I can see that. And there's no Reggie. You can't say our body is ready anymore.
Oh man, I got lucky. I ran into him at his last E3, and I got some pictures with him.
I'm sure he still like shows up at those like events, but like on his own.
Oh yeah, but now he would be more of a closed door personality. Like it was funny because quick anecdote about Reggie. He is one of the coolest dudes in the industry. I've got like several Reggie stories. I've interacted with him many times. He hand signed every Switch review unit. And
oh really?
So like they sent out like a letter to everybody that got a review unit, and he signed all those letters by hand. But he has an exceptionally good memory. So my very first E3, I was there mostly as a fan, right? Like a freelance journalist. Nobody knew who I was, and I happened to run into Reggie on an escalator, and I was just beyond excited, and I was like, hey man, can I get a photo with you? And he's like, as long as you can take it while I'm walking to my meeting, then that's cool. And so my friend like ran up to the top of the escalator and got his camera ready and got a picture with me and Reggie as we were getting off the escalator, and I was like, thanks, I appreciate you so much. And 2 years later, I was with Nintendo Life at this point, and I had reached a point where Nintendo would invite me into the VIP section of their E3 booth so that I could play the demos like in a more quiet space. And that is also where the executives just hang out. Like, you know, that's where they have like their place to sit down, take a breath, eat some food away from people trying to talk to them. And he spotted me in there playing demos, and he came up to me and was like, hey man, I remember you. We took a picture on an escalator a couple years ago. He's like,
that's great.
I'm surprised to see you here. And I was like, oh yeah, you know, I work for Nintendo Life. And he's like, yeah, I know. I've read your stuff. I just didn't know you were that same kid I took a picture with forever ago. Wow. And so Reggie has always been really, really kind. And I was just shocked he remembered that, because I'm like, I'm just some kid at E3 asking like, hey, can I get a picture with you? And the final Reggie story I have is that the last E3 he went to, there was a Splatoon and Smash Brothers tournament that were concurrent with each other. And I had been, again, invited as a VIP to that. And so this was, at the time that happened, the review program for Mario Tennis Aces was going on. And I had my Switch with me, and I was playing it like while I was waiting for the tournament to start. And so even if you're a VIP, like Reggie and them get to sit in another section that's cordoned off, so even the VIPs can't go there. And Reggie was playing Mario Tennis Aces on his Switch. And so he was the first person I'd seen that also had the game. And so I just like went through the velvet rope and went and sat down and talked to him real quick. And I was like, hey, you know, I'm reviewing the game you're playing right now, and I have not gotten to play local multiplayer. Would you be cool if we just played a few matches? And he's like, hell yeah, sit down. And then like the security folks were trying to tell Reggie I should leave. And he's like, no. He's like, you gonna tell me he can't sit here? And so I sat with Reggie. We were playing matches, and I was just smoking him. Like, poor guy was not that great at the game. But someone tells him, they're like, hey Reggie, okay, you need to come out and start the tournament. He's like, no, we got one more match. He's like, tell them to wait. And so Reggie like delayed the entire tournament by another 5 or 10 minutes so that he and I could close out our set in Mario Tennis. And I thought that was just the coolest shit ever. I was like, that's
the dream, dude.
Yeah, so I love Reggie. I've met Doug Bowser. He's cool too, but it's just a different feel.
He hasn't been out enough because, well, I guess everything's been screwed because of the pandemic. But the only thing we know him as is, well, the person that's not Bowser. Like, they made that one joke and then he was gone. Poof.
Yeah, that one E3 skit was amazing. Then that's about it.